nice to see you again on this beautiful day. And this time with a quote by Patrick Bet David. He said, "Clarity comes from the decisions that are aligned with your core beliefs and values." What is your take on that?
Yeah, great to be back. And a cool quote here today. And I think that clarity is something that for me in my life, I experience vividly, going back and forth from the feeling of clarity to the feeling of confusion to more feeling of confusion and wishing I had the feeling of clarity. And I've had the sensation many, many times of being in a state of what I would call confusion, where the brain is trying to tell a narrative over here and trying to tell a narrative over here and swimming and swimming and swimming, trying to quote, get to the bottom of it. And it seems like it's a bottomless well of just thinking upon thinking upon thinking, thought, talking to words. And you never get to the bottom of it when you're trying to get to the bottom of it in this way of being. It really tends to be an unfruitful search in my experience. Whereas clarity, on the other hand, this sense of my body is telling me that this is the thing, and I can just feel throughout my being that I need to go in this direction, or I need to put an end to this part of what's going on in my life. This feeling is something that can sort of speak to us in a way that's deeper than language, that rings truer than language, that rings through the confusion of the cacophony of thought within our mind. And that is a signal that for me has come several times in my life, but it comes, it goes, it's here, it's there, and it does tend to be rooted with this sense of alignment, this sense of, or a lack of alignment, and the body telling me to get back in alignment, back into integrity with myself. And this is something that's, in my experience, useful to make the big risks to get into something or to get out of something, to move into a phase of life or to move beyond some aspect of a phase of life into what is next or past what is here. What do you think about clarity and the guidance that we can receive from this sense of alignment and this sense of intuition?
Well, the guidance we can receive, thank you for your thoughts, Peyton, is if you really go into the quiet, maybe of the woods, and like Henry David Thoreau, take a look at the pond, and the Walden Pond, and you see it becomes clear if it's still. And the stillness,
Hmm.
if you try to reach the stillness within yourself, then the clarity comes to you to see through yourself towards your core, metaphorically speaking. But if you tune out for a short amount of time and then really become quiet, you kind of feel your body even more. You feel the thoughts popping up from unconscious into consciousness. And if you allow them to become conscious, you will take fate into your hands. You can see through your moist robot self, through your programming maybe even, and then you can take the lines of code and rewrite them. You rewrite your own story again, and that is beautiful in being still, and therefore feeling your intuition, your inner being better, like Henry David Thoreau in Walden Pond, when he looks at the pond.
There is a Tao Te Ching line along these lines too. It says, "Can you let your dust settle until the right answer arises on its own?" And I think it points to something very similar to what Thoreau was saying. You remind me also of this, the verse in the old book, "Be still and know." Not swim around in your head till you get to the bottom of it. Be still and know. Receive, as opposed to create this logical argument.
Yeah, and it points to the same things over and over, like Lao Tse or Rumi. When are you going to get to know yourself? And the Oracle of Delphi in the old uh, Greece says, know thyself. And everything points towards, first you have to know yourself to really get clear about what aligns with your core beliefs and values. Alignment doesn't just come like that. You have to really be sure of what are your values, what is your core. It's a hard task. It's very difficult to really get to know yourself. You really have to engage in a conscious process for that. It doesn't just come like that. Okay, for some maybe it comes just like that after enormous amount of pain or suffering. Then clarity comes because of this stark contrast. But for people who don't experience such high volatile experiences, they have to engage in a conscious process to really become still and recognize and feel the reactions, feel your intuitions, feel your body when you confront yourself with the real world. What do you think about a way of really getting to know yourself? How would you do that?
I think of it partly in terms of our alignment with our beliefs or alignment with our values in terms of the day-to-day decisions that we make and the day-to-day words that we say. I think there's a ton of situations that are big or small that arise in our life where where we are asked to make a decision where it looks like our values are pointing me at doing this, but it looks like expediency is pointing me at doing this. This comes up all the time for me, especially when managing humans. When humans are going to do challenging things, sometimes they're going to step out of line, and a lot of times there's going to be a situation where this person in front of me, it's going to make my life way harder in the immediate term and create unknown risks if I hold a boundary, if I enforce a value, and if I do not tolerate what I've said I won't tolerate. A lot of times there's this voice inside of me that says, yes, you need to do this if you're going to be in integrity, in alignment, if you're going to follow what you say, if you're going to hold true to what is most important to you. But there's going to be this or there's going to be this unknown cost that accelerates maybe in a way that you can't foresee. It'll be extremely painful. It's going to tank your energy for a few days because it's just going to suck to dive into all this conflict and lean into it. But these are the moments when we are asked to trust. We are asked to trust in our intuition. We are asked to trust in our values. And trusting in the values is easy when there are no hard decisions, when it's clear that, oh yes, this thing that is in alignment with my values is also what I feel like doing, and it's the most expedient thing. But it's those moments when the two paths diverge, and I actually have to pay a price if I want to stay true to my values. Those are really the actual decisions when we decide if our values are going to rule us, or if the whims of the moment and expediency is going to rule us. And we're constantly tempted to go down the path of expediency because it's easier in the short term, and we are biased heavily to prioritize short-term comfort over a long-term trust in something that may be a little bit more abstract or whatever. But you can see that over time, if you choose the thing that is expedient, if you choose, for example, to tell a white lie because it makes the situation much easier, or if you choose to look away from holding a boundary because you don't feel like investing the energy into that today, over time, these little votes, these little decisions, if you make things that are expedient and not necessarily aligned with your values, it erodes your foundation. It weakens you greatly because truly you are the witness of all of the actions you take. If you see yourself compromise on your values here, if you see yourself do something that's out of integrity with who you are and what you believe over here, and you make these tiny little decisions, and maybe you're 50-50 on actually trusting and following your deepest truth, then you know that when it is time to make a hard decision and follow your deepest truth, you don't necessarily, it's not automatic. It's not necessarily habituated. You actually are weighing the decisions each time, which robs you of your conviction because now you will follow your core values to the degree that it's not too inexpedient, but actually you're just making it a part of the negotiation now instead of your ruling principle, instead of listening and being guided by your inner GPS within, by something that's more foundational, more sturdy, more rock solid than just whatever the moment makes you feel like is more convenient when you calculate the cause and effect of whatever's in front of you. How do you think about this quest to be fully consistent, or even if we're not perfect, to vote at a very consistent level to follow our deepest truth, as opposed to always calculating what will make these next interactions easier for me?
Yeah, you pointed out that everything you do, every action you take is either aligned with your values or on a spectrum there or not, or even leading you away from alignment with your core self and what you really know deep down to be true with you. And this is a hint towards an election for yourself. You can
Mm.
vote for your future self with your actions, with the actions you take. And every action you take is, so to say, a vote for your future self. But what kind of future self you will vote for depends on what you do and whether that is in alignment with what you want to become. And this is a hard identity task, actually, because usually things we strive for are not the things that are like pleasurable all the time. If you want to become fit and healthy, you have to work out, and there is like this activation energy you have to first invest until it's like free flowing. But first, you have to convince yourself that you know you will feel better afterwards. But doing it is hard. So if you just would do the easy stuff, it will lead to a future self which has a very hard life, in my belief system, in my opinion. But there's this saying by this fitness trainer from Tim Ferriss, I guess. He said, "Easy choices, hard life; hard choices, easy life." And this is similar to voting for ourselves. Hard choices mean, oh, you will not take the treat now, you will save it up for later, because then it will probably be double the treat you can get, but also you will have had your workout done. And not only with workouts, but also financial decisions or partner decisions or uh, decisions aligned with trust. And you are your witness. You also said you see what you do and whether it is aligned with the identity you strive for. And this erodes your trust in yourself if you are doing the things that are not aligned with the one who you want to become. And therefore, I highly recommend ourselves to take the hard choices, even if it's not easy. And even if I look back, I see, oh, I'm not always choosing my best version in the future. I oftentimes choose unconsciously or consciously even, I choose a different minor version of that. And that is also, in a sense, not too bad, because in a vote, in an election, the one gets voted who gets the most votes. So you have to cast most votes to the person you want to become, and the other ones will be forgiven sometimes. But there are some votes you don't want to cast away, you don't want to throw away. So how do you get this consistency, Peyton?
Yeah, it has a lot to do with, I think, the degree to which we are listening versus the degree to which we are shouting over and narrating and making a story about ourselves, looking at ourselves from the third person and getting wrapped up in talking about ourselves and thinking about ourselves. I also would point out, I mentioned earlier about the absolute importance of leaning into conflict when it is called for, and having the courage to speak up and to hold people accountable, even when it's really painful and difficult in the short term to do so, or even risky, if it is something that is aligned with our core truth. But just as much, there is a total other side of this where um, abiding our deepest values doesn't mean that we should try to win every argument. I found recently I was in um, certain disagreements with somebody that I deeply love, that I care a lot about, and I realized that the greater context of these disagreements is not what we're talking about. It's not this, should we do this or should we do that? Or what about your role? What about my role? What have you done? What have I done? All these things. The greater context was that this is one of the most important people in my entire life. And I care so much more about the bond that I share with this person, the trust I share with the person, the love that I feel toward this person than I do toward winning this argument or toward proving my point. And so the right thing in that moment was not to not speak the truth, was not to hold my tongue so that I don't upset anybody. This is not living in integrity either. But it was speaking the truth, saying how I view the situation, and not forcing this person to get beat down by this argument and this argument and this argument. It wasn't to try to win. It was to try to flow and give less resistance and be flexible and movie while fully expressing the truth, so that this relationship can come to a place of mutual understanding, reconciliation, mutual love, and trust, as opposed to me trying to win and assert dominance and be the one in control and make the best argument and to win. This is not what the situation called for. This was not being in alignment. And so it's kind of subtle. What is the right answer here? What is the right answer here? It's not a maximize this lever all the time. It's not turn this all the way up. These rules of preconceived stances that we decide in advance to bring to any situation actually rob us of our receptivity to what the situation calls. And that receptivity is necessary for us to view whatever is in front of me through the lens of a broader, greater context. And the broader, greater context of any argument is not actually what we're saying here right now and the immediate decisions we're making here right now. It is all future interactions with this person, the relationship that will be formed on the basis of this. What does that relationship mean? What is the greatest potential of that? What is the secondary effects of whatever we decide here and how it affects other people? There's a broader context that we might need to bring to the situation in front of us. And the broader the context is, and the broader the context we want to care about, because that is where our long-term vision, that is where the alignment with our value is. We need to expand how we're viewing this situation in front of us and not get it narrowed into just wanting to win this 1 hour discussion in front of me. The broader context is where our values exist. The broader context is where the life decisions that lead us down this path versus this path exist. And so if we want to live a whole life that is satisfying to us, that has relationships that we love, that has a fit mind, a calm body, and a house full of love, these things that can only be earned, never bought, then we must keep the big picture in mind and not get so caught up and so wrapped up in the immediate situation and what my ego wants about this or this or this, or where I feel this chattering in my brain making this narrative that makes me feel so indignant or so self-righteous about this or that. These things are oftentimes what cover up our view of the bigger picture. And coming back to the bigger picture, remembering the bigger picture of, if I'm caught up in conflict, if I'm trying to win and win and win, if I'm pouring fire after fire and doing this over and over, it's going to submerge my brain into contraction and anger, these ill will, these negative emotions that are afflictive and do not serve me and I do not wish to be addicted to. These are pitfalls that arise if we get too caught up in our language and our stories and not enough listening to the core of our being, not enough listening to where we are pulled and what our body says. And this is kind of a subtlety, a subtler voice that we are wise to try to not drown out, in my experience. How about you? How do you think about the bigger picture, or the feeling of perhaps being a rock moving through water, as clarity can allow?
Yeah, you talked about that you have to keep the big picture in mind. You have to really see your vision for the future. And you also mentioned the quote by Naval where he says, a house full of love and a fit body and a calm mind must be earned. You just cannot buy them. It is a process you have to engage with. It is a perspective you have to have. It is judgment you have to exercise, which is aligned with that vision. You don't have to upset people you love in a way that has an absorbing barrier of relationship, trust broken, whatever. So it is wise to avoid these kinds of barriers, and also ask yourself what brings you joy and what gives you energy. And definitely it's the conversations with your loved ones which are high key, which are on a good note, which are full of trust and understanding, even if it becomes hard, even if you have to speak the truth, which requires the courage to do it, which requires not just telling white lies, which requires vulnerability and honesty. And if you realize, looking back on your life, those were the conversations which really enhanced the relationship, the quality of the relationship, where you really had to speak your truth and then realign your values, your principles, both or everybody who's involved, realign your principles to a better relationship. You know now how you deal with each other better than before, because you spoke your truth, and also in a way which is kind and loving. So what gives you energy? So this is a question which also can help to discover what is your core, because whatever resonates with you is like a characteristic of yourself which shows. Like when you play an instrument and it resonates with you very, very well, and then you find, I'm a guitar player, I love the hang drum. That is great. And also you mentioned the broad context. If you have the receptivity in a situation where it allows yourself to take in what comes and react to the situation given, you are much more agile. You can move yourself in a much better way in a complex situation. Because if you have the information fast, sooner than later, you can have more time to think about it, for example. And it was also now a totally different example, but in the book from Jeff Sutherland, one of the co-creators of Scrum, this project management technique, which is made to be agile, he explained the difference between US fighters from I don't know, maybe it was 1970 or whatever. And the US had fighter planes and the Russians had fighter planes. But the Russian fighter planes, even though they have not been technologically that advanced, they were better pilots, it seemed, or better, they had better outcomes. And then he took a look at what caused the better outcomes, and it was the field of vision that the pilot in the Russian mix had. He had a better field of vision, therefore he could anticipate situations much sooner. Better judgment through increased transparency. And therefore they implemented that as well in the other fighter planes. And now fighter planes are obsolete because of drones, soonish rather than later. But the point is, the more transparency you have, the more likely it is that the truth will travel to the right point where the judgment has to be made. And if the truth arrives to that point and the judgment is good, then the outcomes probably improve as well. The clarity improves as well. And therefore, if clarity comes from the decisions that are aligned with core beliefs and values, transparency and speaking the truth helps with clarity as well. What do you think about that?
And what is the point? What is the benefit of clarity? Why seek clarity and why treasure clarity, as we've been suggesting? And this, I think, has a few different answers. One, of course, within the mind, it is such a better experience to have a clear mind rather than a mind that is swimming in a storm that is going on inside all the time, where we feel this cognitive dissonance and self-conflict and this sense of confusion that all of us are subject to for a lot of our lives. The feeling of clarity, the feeling of a still mind, a flexible mind, a mind at peace, This is a treasure in our own experience, subjectively speaking, and gives us a great power in our interactions. We all can kind of picture people who are living from a place of clarity and speaking from a place of clarity. The truth flows from them with a conviction and a purity that is not calculated, and you can sense it. You can tell when somebody is thinking about how every word they're going to say is being received and how they want to affect the emotions and receptivity, and it's calculated and it maybe sounds rehearsed and planned in advance, versus the person that is completely flowing, completely extemporaneous, speaks with pure conviction and can only speak the truth because that is all that is flowing from them in a way that comes with total clarity as a sort of rule. They're not calculating, what have I said to this person in the past? What is this person going to think? Do I got to remember what this person is going to remember me saying right now and make sure it lines up with some other story? No. Clarity and a commitment to truth gives you a great ease at the same time that it gives you a great courage in your interaction. And beyond our conversations, beyond just the quality of our mind and the quality of our experience, clarity brings us courage. Clarity brings us courage to chart our life in a way that is aligned with what we actually want during this brief opportunity here. It is so common for somebody to be in a job that they dislike, living a life that they dislike, but yet to perpetuate that cycle and not change anything about it for years and years and years and years. It's not uncommon at all for somebody to determine that, oh, this sucks. I hate this. I'm having a bad time every day when I'm going to work or when I'm in this relationship or whatever. And yet to have a swimming mind that is telling a story over here, telling a story over here, telling a story over here, they try to get to the bottom of it. They try to figure it out and run the language math. But language math doesn't work like that. Language math doesn't give you clarity. Trying to put one word in front of the other in a linear sequence is almost never going to be enough to actually convince you or to give you the courage to change your life, to make a bold move that involves great risk, to pursue some high end, or to leave some situation that is ultimately not serving you. And I can look back in my own life and see that a handful of decisions made a huge impact on my path. And a few of these decisions, I was in a place when I was still in them. I was in a situation that did not serve me, that was not aligned with who I was or with my values, where I was going down a path that I do not want to invest 5 years of my life doing this or pursuing this. And it took clarity. It took an insight or a strong and clear intuition that came from a deep understanding and connection with my values and listening and finding that this definitely, in order to be who I want to be, in order to be who I am, in order to be in integrity, I must leave this corporate job. I must leave this unhealthy relationship. I must leave this place. I must go and adventure for a long time, or I must go and pursue this great risk of whatever entrepreneurial venture. And these stepping out of the boat, these not knowing what is next, but yet having the courage to see that I feel clearly that I need to do this or I need to put a stop to this. That is so essential in actually charting a whole life and making the big decisions in our life that ultimately determine where we are, who we are around, what we are doing, the ways that we are growing or not growing, and the things that are upstream of a lot of our experience and the power that we have to have a good experience for ourselves and to benefit the well-being of others. And so that, I think, is the ultimate power of clarity. Clarity is a source of courage. When we have clarity, we can move through the world like a rock moves through water because we are following and listening to our intuition, and we are going fully unified all at once, all in alignment toward or away from what we are called to move toward or away from. And that inner intuition, that inner GPS system is so trustworthy when we learn to trust it. And it's only in trusting it once, seeing how it goes, not trusting it over here, see how that goes, trust it again, remember to trust it, move forward, listen to it, get to clarity, see how that goes, experiment with it over and over and see what the results are from when we are following this clarity from our deepest intuition and deeply connected with it, when we are charting the course of the big decisions of our life versus when we are trying to do it all on our own, when we're trying to be so smart that we can predict everything in the future and we can map out the whole world and what it implies for us with language. That is a recipe for confusion. That is a recipe for non-clarity, into this endless swimming in our heads and getting twisted up and wanting, not wanting, trying to get to the bottom of it, not confident, not really convicted if this is the right thing or that thing. So it's safer to just wait and to just stay status quo and to just not move and not rock the boat. This is I would say, the trap that many of us find ourselves in at various points in various lengths. But when we find ourselves there, when we find ourselves in confusion, seeking clarity, seeking alignment, listening, listening, listening. And then when we do hear, to have this strong sense of trust, to understand what wisdom sounds like or what wisdom feels like, and to put our faith in it. This is so helpful if we want to fully engage, fully love, and fully find alignment with what we ultimately want, who we ultimately are in this life. Any closing thoughts from you, my man, on the power of
Beautiful,
clarity?
man.
Why
Yeah,
seek
man.
clarity?
Yeah, man. Why seeking clarity? Obviously, because it leads towards a more meaningful life. Because now you can really take the courage and trust yourself better because you are clear about what serves you, what not. And then you can have increased courage to really do the decisions, make the decisions which lead to a more meaningful and more fulfilled life. And yeah, you have to, at some point, if you know that what you are doing is not true to yourself, you have to have the courage to embrace the unknown and make a decision which is aligned with your core beliefs, and then you are clear about what comes next, even if it's unknown to you what will come next. But you're clear that there has to be a way. There has to be a way to become another person, to become better than you've been before, to become a person who lives a meaningful life, full of love, full of kindness, full of courage, and full of strength. May we be well and happy and have clarity and gain clarity and stillness and peace.
I leave us with a quote that I may slightly misremember, but I just loved it, from a book recently. And it said something along the lines of, the courage you bring to today will be the fate that you meet tomorrow. And so I wish us clarity. I wish us deep truth and alignment with who we are, the ability to listen, and the courage to fully trust when we hear the message. So appreciate you sharing your thoughts, man. Thank you very much. As always, it's wonderful talking to you, and I look forward to the next one. Enjoy the stepping out of the boat and the wonderful adventures that await you over the next 5 months, thanks to the clarity that you've learned to follow.
Thank you very much, my friend. See you soon.
Bye bye.